don't see it any other way. I'm too weak to make the climb. I need a miracle this time. That's when
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Donna Feazell, and I'm your host of Afternoon Drive Home on IC Radio in the town of Geraldine, Alabama. Had you ever heard of Geraldine, Alabama before you came here, DeJoly?
No, I haven't.
She hadn't heard it, but you had heard of Pat Upton from the Spiral Staircase, who sang the hit song "I Love You More Today Than Yesterday."
Oh, yeah, I do remember that.
It's from here.
Oh, cool.
Right here in Geraldine, Alabama. Thank you again so much for listening. We definitely appreciate that. I know you can be doing anything else, but you're watching us right now. You can find us nationwide, worldwide, basically on Abundant TV, which is found on Roku, Apple TV, and Amazon Fire. And then locally right here in North Alabama, you can find us on channel 182 on Charter Communications. You can find us on the web as well. And all the social media sites, you can't get away from us. I mean, we're just here. So we're here.
That's a good thing.
Absolutely. Wanted to mention our guest for the rest of the, we're going ahead and I forgot to put the timer on, so let's go ahead and get that started. Right, there we go. And who's going to be on the rest of the week? I know you want to know, and you're going to get a kick out of one of the Friday segments. Okay, you'll probably want to come down here again. On Friday. So this is our actually our Wednesday version, so we appreciate you watching as well. We're just talking with Barry and Kathy Holcomb, and he is a minister, and he was talking about a new program they have developed, so make sure you check that out again. But coming up on Thursday's show, I'm going to be talking with Loretta Roger, and she's with Cove Crafters. You and I love to do crafts. You need to come with me this one time. J.L. Music Man is a musician, and really love talking with him. He was on the show a couple of weeks ago, and he's from Canada, and he'll be coming in through Zoom from Canada, originally from the United States. So looking forward to talking with him. Tricia Hopper, who is with Gap, and no, it's not closed. It's the guardianship program, and that's in Marshall County. So she's going to be with us as well. We're going to be talking with Anna York, and Anna is with the Ider Police Department. This is on Friday. A lot of folks are making these 911 calls that should not be made to 911. So she's going to give us an education. What is 911? How should we actually use that? So I'm looking forward to talking with her. And then my buddy DJ Andrew House is going to be with us as well. Looking forward to seeing him at 2 o'clock on Friday. This is one you're going to get a kick out of, and Deja is going to want to come and see this, okay? And this is going to be part 1 and part 2 of how to hatch chickens with a homemade incubator.
Oh, okay.
I've already started the process. I've already done a couple of segments. Really? Yeah. You're going to, before you leave the studio, I want you to check this out. You don't have to have the incubator, and I just want to see if we could do it. And so they have to be a particular temperature. They've got to be around 100 degrees. It could be 90 degrees, but no more than 50 degrees. You're going to have some chicken salad sandwich. Oh. So anyway, and they have to be less than a week old. It needs to be farm grown right here on a farm. If you have a friend who's a farmer, make sure you get your eggs there. You can't do the ones from the grocery store. There's not going to have the hormones available to do that. So I'm looking forward to that. Talking with him as well. So it's always great to see you, DeJoly. You have been such a huge help in my life. And I had something that came up really weird a few days ago, and I think I sent you the message that said that you and Phil are the two constants in my life, and I definitely appreciate that. All of us run through things. It can be family related. It can be just any kind of a relationship related. And a lot of folks are going through these little snags right now,
They are.
And I don't know why it seems like to be an explosion. And I see people on Facebook, they want to put what's going on in their life, but some people just don't want to put their life story on Facebook.
Yeah.
And enduring these things, because you have your own testimony of things that you had to go through in your young life as well.
That's true. Yeah.
That's back before you could talk about it, though, wasn't it?
Pardon?
That's back before you could talk about it.
Well, it was before I could talk about it, because at that time, children were possessions. Mm-hmm. They weren't human beings with a thought process or any kind of value as far as your opinion didn't matter. And so you did what you were told and stayed silent. And so, yeah, there were some pretty harsh things that happened to me as a child. So, but I think working through that and also learning how to deal with other people in relationships was the most valuable thing. And I know that it was hard, but sometimes I think that one of the reasons that it happened to me was to learn about the use of power over other people, and learning how to be humble in a way, not and being able to own your own mistakes. Could have said a different word, but but own your own mistakes and then make amends and do better. And I think that's one of the hardest things for me to deal with, is when people make mistakes, or they're harsh to me, or they do things that are purposeful to hurt, and then they don't own it. They don't say, oh yeah, I did that, it was kind of not a very nice thing to do, but I'll make amends if you let me, and I'll be better, I'll do differently. And if I see that they're doing differently, then I understand that they made amends. But if they just give me mouth works, chatter like, oh, I am so sorry, I get, I would say, suspicious or untrusting until I see the actions.
Well, people who have went through things at a very early age in their life, I mean, I did. There's some issues too, but it's hard to thoroughly, really, fully trust. I mean, you learn as age to do it, but it is kind of hard.
Yes, it is. I think it's one of the major stumbling blocks that a lot of people have. And I think when you go through trust issues related to your actual birth family, where, for instance, I'm going to say in my birth family, that's my first book, was about a cult that they were in, and they made me the quote chosen child, and I was used in all kinds of ceremonies. It was very painful and hurtful. And once you get to a place, I got to a place where I understood that there was a lot of healing to do. And I believe, this is my own opinion, that you can actually understand and forgive, but you don't have to bring that person or anybody that you don't care to have in your life into your life, because you yourself are a sacred temple. God made us, and God didn't say, now go out and destroy my creation. God said, be happy, be joyful, love each other, that kind of thing. And when you don't have that, you do have a point where you can say, okay, I forgive you, because I have.
Yeah, you have to.
Because the forgiveness is for yourself, so you're not always burdened with the anger and the hate and the victimhood and all that stuff. But what you can say and really know that you've forgiven, but that doesn't mean that trust barrier has been repaired, and you may not want them in your life. You may not want anybody that has that kind of personality or those kinds of actions in your life. And throughout life, you learn to discern who deserves your energy, who deserves the power of your voice, who deserves the love that you have to give. And you don't, for me, I don't go around saying, oh, you're one, I'll love you, or, oh, you're one, you deserve my power. No, I just make observations and act accordingly. So it's very difficult, though. That trust issue is a big one for a lot of people. And sometimes I wouldn't call it minor, because every abuse is not minor. But when you're subjected to cult abuse, that's a little bit beyond the pale. Yeah. So and it was difficult getting through that. And my parents, it took a while for me to do the forgiveness work on them. And I thought I was fine, before I forgave them. Oh, I thought I was fine. I had a little anger seething below the surface, but after I gave that up, I said, well, I don't want to carry that the rest of my life. I just want to, go on with my life and be happy, see if I can have love and joy and beauty in my life. And fortunately, because I had persistence and I had a desire, I was able to create that in my life. I have that in my life now.
Well, you were successful. You went to college, became a school teacher, and she's an author and she was a speaker as well. So
Here's my second. This is my second book. Because well, it's kind of, oh, there you go. There you go. And it's I have a third one out. It's more of a workbook. I know you said you
It's been a huge help. And I suggest you get it because, and this is something that's kind of difficult. Sometimes you almost feel like a pincushion. Sometimes you almost feel like that people like that are attracted to you and they come into your life. How does that happen?
Well, everyone has their own spiritual beliefs about why people come into this world and why they leave at certain times and, that kind of thing. So I don't want to get into that whole philosophy thing, but I think there is always a reason. And for me, that period of my life in which I finally at 18, I left home and went to college.
Was that the freedom you needed?
That was the freedom I needed. Because I could see after leaving that other kids didn't have to live like that. And they were happy and they were carefree. And it takes me a lot, really, to feel carefree. Even though I have the things in my life that I enjoy, it takes me a while to get into that carefree playfulness that it would be nice to have.
Do you feel like your childhood was just taken away from you? Or did you have one?
Absolutely. I didn't have a childhood. I did not have a childhood. And that's, I think, when I look back and I say, if I had regrets, this is what I would regret. I regret that I didn't have a childhood. I didn't have a family that I could go to family reunions with, or picnics, or confide in, or, all kinds of things that you do if you have a loving family unit. And it made me, I shouldn't say it made me, I felt deprived of, when I would hear other kids talking about their families and the vacations they went on, which we never went on vacation. I was like, whoa, what a vacation.
What's that?
Yeah, when somebody says, well, why don't you take a few days off and go off to the beach? And I'm like, I don't know how to do
What
that.
would that? What would that be like?
Yeah, I don't know. Okay, whatever. But I would get a little bit jealous of the fact that I can't relate to that. I'm very.
You don't have the memories of that.
I'm grateful for that they have that, but I'm not a person who can totally relate to it because I didn't have it. Like they can't relate to my childhood because they didn't, thankfully, have that in their lives.
I know, like seeing mothers and daughters going shopping together and stuff like that. So you missed out on.
I missed out on that, but I also there's another aspect, and that is when I would see fathers and daughters in the playground, I would always look at the child and wonder if she was getting abused.
Oh, yeah.
And so it took me a long time to be able to go to the playground and not feel that way. Long time.
What are some red flags? What are something, let's say you see a neighbor, you see a child, and it's just showing some kind of signs. What do you need to look out for?
I think for me, it would be seriousness. They don't have the animation in their appearance. They don't spontaneously, joyfully play. This is a small child, and they are somewhat loners, or if they're in the middle of things and they become the focus of attention, they retreat. You might find them hiding sometimes crying over something that seemed very minor to you. So there are lots of signs because you can't really hold that in forever. And there's some things that come out. And if you're looking at physical signs, sometimes there are bruises and that kind of thing. My parents were good at not leaving marks beyond the clothing lines, And so there are kids that come to school with black eye, or they're continually sick. I've got a headache, I'm going to stay home today, and that kind of thing. Part of that's to cover up the abuse that they're experiencing.
Do these children find they're living, in their mind, is that a normal family life? If they've never seen anything but what they're living in, is that normal to that child?
It becomes normal. It becomes, it was a shock to me, really, when I went away to school and to college, I mean, and I was like, this is a totally different environment where I talked to kids and they were, openly had an opinion about something, or they got something from their parents, to go to school. They got clothing from their parents, which I didn't get that. I worked 40-hour week and went to school full time. So it was kind of like, I did get out of school for one quarter so that I could make enough money to go back the next quarter. But, when you get away from that, when you're in it, it becomes a norm. You don't think about it. Like, for instance, when I went to one of my hospitalizations because the satanic ritual abuse and that kind of thing caused me to have splits in my mind boxes of compartmentalizing events. And so, in fact, I just forgot where I was going with that, but it had to do with making normal. I thought that was normal. And I thought because other people weren't talking about it, that meant that I was having a problem and they weren't. And so I just felt like they were handling it better than I was, because I thought everybody was being abused. And so when I got
normal.
I thought it was normal. So I get to the hospital and I'm talking about, the therapist says to me, oh, why don't you go back to the dorm and draw for me what it's like to be inside of you, to let you function, right? So I'm thinking, oh, she's going to show me hers. She's going to show me hers. So finally,
How can I learn from
somebody's finally going to talk about it, right? And I go back and I get all my parts in different places, and it looked like the flow chart of a corporation. And I go back and I'm like so excited, like she's going to show me, and she looks at me and I said, well, where's yours? And she said, well, I don't have that. And it was like a shock came to my face. I was like, what do you mean? Who gets you dressed in the morning? Who fixes your breakfast? Who drives you to work? How can you function here without all these other parts? So it helped me to realize that what I thought was normal was an anomaly, that my family was an anomaly. We had, I would say, rampant abuse, basically, among us. And so, and I also think that it takes a while for children in that kind of an environment to work through all the issues so that they don't become an abuser. And that's
sometimes that's handed
that
down.
happens because,
how often does that happen?
Well, you can always kind of tell if a person becomes a bully. They have extreme abuse somewhere that they are modeling in their behavior toward others. It could be either a model of somebody abusing them, or it could be in a way retaliating toward this person that they're abusing in a way that they understand, because they don't understand kindness. So you can see that in a bully. You can also, see it in mass shootings and stuff like that in school. It's really hard to not go there. When I think about that, I keep wonder what that person went through to get to the place where they
see. I do too. I think about what happened when they were a child, what happened in their life.
So that's why my third book is called What Happened to You, because I believe, and I have believed most of my life, that I wasn't born the way I was, that something happened to make me
I
behave and do the way I did. And that kind of thing is, polar opposite to, oh, everybody has a reason for being here kind of thing, So but in the end, you have to take responsibility as you grow. You have to, and if you don't, you stay a victim. You stay in that mode of, well, I'm never going to heal. I'm never going to be happy. I'm never going to have what you have, that kind of thing. And so it's a phenomenon that you never get used to knowing that that exists.
Mhm.
Yeah, I would like to know that that never exists anymore. You know,
Well, why did you become a school teacher? I mean,
It
why
was-
was that your chosen?
it wasn't my choice.
How did you become?
The truth is, I was taught to do whatever I was told. And if you read my second book, you'll know what that means. And so when I got into college, I went to a teacher's college because it was close by and it was less expensive than some of the other schools that were around. And I went to this college, Ball State University in Muncie, Indiana. And it was a teacher's college. And for me, the classes were relatively easy. And because I, went through it, I was like, okay, I'm going to get my degree in teaching, that kind of thing. And I also am a natural teacher.
Mhm.
So I thought, well, okay, I can do that. And I got out and I went and taught for a little while. And I really loved relating to the kids, but I did not like being told that I had to teach something to be able to pass a test, a what do you call it, a general test where you pass, because now you get funding for your school because so many percentage so many pass the test,
Mhm.
and you teach to pass the test.
Mhm.
And so there were other things that were factors, but I got out of teaching and went off and as far as in the school system, I got out of teaching. But as time passed and I was able to do some healing, I ended up spending 16 years going to universities and conferences and that kind of thing, talking about satanic ritual abuse and multiple personality disorder, which they end up calling dissociative disorder. So for 16 years, I did that. And that's a way of teaching as well. It helped me get through it, but it helped
And
me heal.
you never know who you're touching.
That's
I
right.
mean, you just never know how you're helping.
That's right. Like we're on here and I don't know who's listening,
Mhm.
but somebody may have a reason
Mhm.
that this touches them. They may be going through something or they may know somebody. So I don't know that.
Mhm.
All I have to do is be my authentic self and say my truth, and it might help somebody.
Mhm. Yeah, and I know that it will. It most certainly will. We're going to have to go into a commercial break in just a couple of minutes, though. Before we go into a commercial break, I'm going to talk about a couple of our sponsors.
Okay.
And we're going to talk about Bobby Ledbetter, Twin City Used Car Sales. You know, he has a location now in Gadsden.
I did not.
Yeah,
I
so
wondered
he's
where he
in
had moved
Fort
to.
Payne. Oh, he's still in Fort Payne.
Oh,
He's
okay.
not going anywhere.
But he's not over by Walmart anymore.
Well, he's having to make some trends and some choices. But he's one of those guys that can.
Yes.
He's a lot like me and you. I mean, he can go from one
with the flow.
situation and just go, well, this is not working, so let's just go on. And that's how he is. He's just a really neat guy.
Mhm.
And what I really like about him is he fed a lot of folks and not asking for anything in return, along with Miles Smith, who is the owner of the Cattle Stampede Steakhouse in Fort Payne and Scottsboro. Those are two of my unsung heroes right there. You want to buy from somebody who is actually going to help you and your community. Okay, so that's the person to buy a car from, and also go to the restaurant. They also have 5 entrees less than $5 at the Cattle Stampede Steakhouse. If you want to just run by, say the boss person says, you know what, you got to be back in 30 minutes. You're not going to get a lunch hour, which I've never had a lunch hour in my life anyway. You own your own business. You just do whatever you grab.
That's right. That's right.
And so, you can always call in and they'll handle that for you as well. I also want to talk about another really neat guy. And this is Mike Lindell. And he's the My Pillow guy. Okay, you need to get this book. As a matter of fact, you get the book. The book is for free.
When you buy pillows.
When you buy some pillows. Absolutely. They got some really good. Go to mypillow.com. And to be able to get the deal, now you'll need to put a code. Okay, and the code is Donna. Just plain old D-O-N-N-A. And so I was talking with his folks, and they said, no, let's think of a good code. And I was trying to come up with something elaborate. And they said, just do Donna. I said, okay, Donna, that'll work. They have some really good deals on their sheets and towels. The towel sets are actually buy one, get one free. So you can get those, and we've got those, and they are really, really nice. And the sheets
Oh,
are
I love their sheets.
awesome. You were right.
I know.
You were right.
Hello.
And they are really, really awesome. They're made very, very well. Let's go ahead and cut into a commercial break. I went just a little bit over, but we're going to be right back in just a minute. So y'all hang tight in there, okay? We'll be right back.
Shouting about me, face your fear, shout my name, proclaim the victory. You've said your prayers, now take a stand, get up off your knees. You've told me about that mountain, now tell the mountain about me. Don't tell me about that mountain.
Good afternoon. We are back. My name is Donna Fiesel, and I'm your host of Afternoon Drive Home on IC in Christ Radio, your source for news and entertainment. You can also find us on television. A couple sources. You can find us locally on channel 182 on Charter Communications. Mike Harden is the owner. As a matter of fact, I talked to Mike earlier this week. We like to get together and share war stories of being in the media world.
Oh boy.
And they always wind up being pretty good stories, though. So we just kind of bounce off of each other and got a few ideas off of each other. But Mike, thank you so much for letting us be on your station. And then nationwide, worldwide, really, we're on Abundant TV. And you can find us on Roku, Apple TV, and Amazon Fire. So we appreciate you listening to us and watching us. I know you could be doing anything else, but you're watching us right now. I have my friend DeJoly with me right now. And so you've been a huge source of help for thousands of people out there, and appreciate you doing that. I'd like to talk to you before we go. We only have about 21 minutes left in this segment. Time runs, flies, and we never plan anything. And I mean, these are just really good talking. We're just talking. We're just friends, and we're talking. I feel a lot of kids get labeled the wrong way when they are in school. Maybe it's just the way they act because they have a strange home life. How does that happen? And is there redemption for those kids?
Oh, the redemption. I think I'm not really sure how the system puts you in these classes, but when I was in school, we didn't have special classes. We had, at least I wasn't aware of it because I was always in the advanced classes because I pushed myself to do the, better and better like you do.
We're good friends. We push each other too, by the way.
So, but there were times when I noticed that sometimes if a child was having auditory or hearing problems or couldn't speak very well, didn't have the way to speak, or they were slow, they were taken out of class and put somewhere else, and I was never aware of that. Now, as a teacher, I had a remedial class and I had an advanced class. The remedial class, some of the kids in the classroom couldn't spell their name the same way twice. And the other class were arrogant and, I know it all, so you can't tell me what to do. And so there was that balance, but it was a full class of remedials. So there were, like, at that time when I was a student teacher and a teacher, the classes were 30 and 40 kids. Now they are like 10 and 12 kids. I'm like, wow, that would be like learning that there are other people in the world that aren't abused, to learn that there's a 12 kids in a class. I would just go, ooh, boy, I'd love to be a teacher again. I could go far with that. But I think that there's more specificity now as far as how they learn and what classes they can take and what they can't. And I think they don't have a full class of remedial kids anymore. They have 2 or 3 with one teacher or something like that, where they actually get specificity about their learning abilities. And because I don't really know how they get that. I feel bad that it happens because I was reading something actually yesterday from a friend of mine who has a podcast. And she was saying that at the time that she was going through her recovery, there was a big deal about having altars. You had to have altars, and it was this and it was that. But she more or less felt a switching of moods. It wasn't there was a this and there was a that. And I was thinking, that's very common among people who have dissociative disorders. They think that it's a personality that, has certain characteristics. And I know that I did that. I had alters. I said I had alters, and then I started thinking that I wasn't really a multiple. I go through all of the doubt, just like anybody else listening would have a doubt. Like, oh no, that can't really happen. But yeah, But you have that splitting off the consciousness, and kids in school, sometimes their consciousness can be in 3 different places. When I was in school, I could float outside the window of the school and watch the ball game that was going on outside while I could answer the questions to the teacher inside. And then, it was just one of those things that people could do. We did. We all do it. We daydream.
I did that too. And I was just mentioning that in the show just a few minutes ago. And that was about Miss Ritchie. And she was the English school teacher. And so I love to daydream. But I was listening to her at the same time. And I don't think she realized that. She thought I was just messing around. And so she told me to get up and go to the other side of the room, get away from the window.
Oh.
And then she said, I want you to, I think she thought I was not listening. She said, I want you to repeat everything I just said before I told you to go. And I did. I told her everything she was talking about. But I know this guy. And this is back from my teenage days. And this is in the 1970s. And this guy had a really strange mother. And he was labeled. He was put in a special ed class. But I was around him a little bit. And I mean, we were just like friends, And there was something about him that told me he didn't belong in that class. He did not. And I picked up on that really quick. And I thought, it's his mother. He doesn't know any better. This is all he knows. He was raised this way. And I felt for that guy. I mean, I really did. I wanted to rescue him, because I knew there was something better. His mother would just run around and tell people that he was actually Elvis's son and stuff. The boy did actually look like Elvis.
Oh.
But I wasn't thinking Elvis's junk is stupid on her. But anyway, this poor boy, that's all he knew. So when a child, that's all they knew, and they have no other outside forces, all they have is what they grow up in.
That's right.
And they get out. They can change. They can change it. They can change their life.
They can choose to. And
some people don't. They're afraid to.
Right. Yes.
They want to be in that little safe cocoon.
The safe cocoon. They get attention by being a victim. I hesitate to say too much about it because I don't know specific circumstances, but children who are raised in that manner in which they basically take on the behavior of the parents or the assumed behavior because the parent is treating them a certain way, they may think themselves that they're sick. And so when they get away from home or they get away from that environment, they have to learn all over, and they have to want to learn. Otherwise, they stay in that position and they become dependent on other people to take care of them. But you have to want. Like when I wanted to be better, I wanted to heal from whatever it was, and I wanted to have a life. It took a lot of determination because there were a lot of things that I had to go through to remember and then to forgive and allow and all of that to be able to heal all of that. So, it's not easy when you get away from home to just pick up and be another person. You can, but you have to be encouraged by somebody. You have to see that you can. You have to have an example of somebody who did,
Is that why some of the parents don't want their kids to leave the house? They want the kids they don't want them to see a better way. That's abuse.
Yeah, it is.
That's child abuse.
Yeah, it is. It is. For instance, in my family, we were a military family, and we were brought up in a time where you don't talk about what happens between these 4 walls, right? And we never went away. We didn't have a vacation. We weren't allowed to go to other kids' houses. We played out in the yard, but that was all we could do. We had to ask permission to go across the street to get a ball if it went out to the other side of the street. We had to go run in the house, ask permission to go get it, and get back and tell them you're back. Right. It was very strict. They had a box that we had to sit in basically. And it's very difficult to break out of that if you don't have an example of what can be done.
Right.
Yeah. So if you're stuck by the power of your parents, because they have power over you. Remember we were talking about the power over thing? They have power over you as a child. And so that's all you know. They don't want you to know that there's a better life out there because they want power over you. So
is this as a caretaker when they get older? Or, I mean, why would you do this to a child?
Well, that's a good question. And that goes back to you choose to be here for a certain reason. There's all kinds of philosophical and spiritual ideas that are swinging around out there that say, well, you chose that life. No, not necessarily. But there were lessons to be learned. So this is the only way you could learn it, whatever. There are a lot of people that feel that way, that's their belief that they put here for a reason, something they had to learn in order to be evolved enough to go to the next life in a good way.
Well, what about the siblings? Okay, so let's say one kid takes off, they get loose, they get out of that. But the other siblings decide they want to stay in it because they think they're in a good situation, and they don't have a relationship with the one who got away. How do you deal with that? That's tough.
That's a tough one. And you have to. For me, I divorced my family because I knew that they weren't good for me, that they were harmful, and they had no desire. Number one, the siblings didn't have desire to do the healing work that it took to get over what had happened. And so to be around them just put all of that back onto me, and the negativity and the accusations and all of that. So for me, in order for me to heal, I felt it was the only option I felt that I had was to divorce my family. And so I don't have relationships with my family. And I'm not saying that's the best way, but it's the way I took. And so if you have a family in which one of the kids gets away and they're happy and joyful, it would be so good if that person could like write a letter or text somebody and say, hey, you want to come and visit me and see, but they have to have an example of something that's better or different. I should say different because they don't know that what they got isn't better. They think it's all there is.
It's like the abused woman who stays with the man. Or it can be sometimes women are abusers. I've met some women I'm afraid of. So, I'm saying that in a joking way, but I literally am afraid of some women. And not anti-women, nothing like that. But, and then they stay with that abuser. And then, you're like, well, you can give them paid. But there's, again, that word power. They're using that word power over that person.
Well, and there are a lot of psychological terms that we can throw around, and one of them is Stockholm Syndrome. The Stockholm Syndrome is that you become friends with your captors, and you will even stand right beside them and say, no, they didn't do anything wrong, or you might even want to marry them, So that is one of those bonding things because they may treat you well occasionally. And so intermittent reinforcement is the most powerful kind of influence. Like if you were, every once in a while you get told how pretty you are. And the rest of the time not the rest of the time, but most of the time you're being abused. You live for that moment when that person will say, you're beautiful, or you're pretty, or would you like to have a peanut butter and jelly sandwich instead of the gruel that I gave you yesterday, that kind of thing. So you get used to being waiting for the next good thing to happen. There's that hope because you're captured. You don't see the outside world. As children, we are, I'm not saying that you want to live in a world where you think, oh, I'm captured, but in a way we are.
Nobody wants to think that parents are abusers.
Right. You don't want to think that, but some parents are.
Well, the story with Elizabeth Smart, you know, that's a pure story right there, where she was afraid of those captors. And there were times I saw this movie and I read her story, and there were times you would think she had a chance to get out. How did she get out?
Well, it's a domestic, goes back to domestic
She was
violence.
so young.
She was young, and you don't have to be young. You can be 90 years old and still be abused and not be able to get out, even though you have a car, you have keys to the car, and you have money in your pocket. You will stay there because that's what you are familiar with. We stay with what's familiar, and there's always the risk that if you get away, that what's on the other side isn't as good as what you've got now. Even as bad as it is, it's not as good as what you know. There's that risk in your
At least
head.
you're familiar with that person.
Yeah, at least you're familiar with the abuse, you know, and that's one of the things we do as human beings. We stay with what's familiar. And so it can be very painful to stay there, but there's that, they're entrenched in the feeling that there's nothing better. Like, I don't think there's anything better, so I might as well stay here. It's a kind of a hopeless kind of feeling.
Well, I've seen situations where like a woman or a man would be abused by their husband or wife, and maybe they go to a church and the pastor thinks they need to stay in it. That makes me want to get that freezer and choke him.
Yeah.
But I mean,
can go
if
there
it
with
comes
you.
to, I mean, I understand how you want marriages to work. I get that. But when someone is being abused to that point, and there could possibly be a death come out of it, I'm not. I used to own a store in a mall, and I'm going to give you a situation. So there was a woman, she's walking 10 paces behind her husband. Red flag one. I knew what that was.
Yeah.
So she was walking in, and he was loud and obnoxious, and she was really quiet and into herself, but barely looked at me. And so he comes by, and he's not wanting her to buy anything to make herself look pretty. You know, and she said, well, I would just like to have some hand cream. So he let her have some hand cream. And I wanted to take her over to the side and say, here's a bag of stuff, you take it home. But I didn't do it. But then there was a bubble gum machine that was right by my kiosk at this mall. He was showing his kid how to steal bubble gum out of that machine. This little kid was about 2 or 3 years old.
Wow.
He was showing him how to do it. I had to say something. I'm sorry, I just had to. And I said, you are teaching your kid to steal. Well, I'm a woman. He apparently had issues with women. And I said, you're teaching your kid to steal. That's not right. Like that to him. Boy, he got mad. And he gets his kid. And I said, you know, your kid's going to be stealing cars in another 10, 15 years. You know, I don't know what happened to that kid. But it was a little innocent child. And he was teaching this little, I know it was just gumballs. I know most people would say, well, that's just gumballs. That's not a big deal.
It starts little. And it's kind of like, I would like to see parents be conscious of, these are not just, you gave birth to a human being, and that you are responsible for that human being to come be happy, to be joyful, to have things that they need and want. And it's your responsibility as the caretaker of that child. And I see a lot of times where they don't want to take that responsibility, that they've relinquished it just by their behavior, not by writing on a piece of paper, you're no longer my child, but because of their behavior toward their children, they have relinquished their parenthood. And then it's really sad, because you don't know, as observers, we don't know what to do for the child, because are they relinquished legally, and can I take that child and hide them away, or, you know, that kind of thing. So, and also, do we want to take responsibility for all the abused children in the world? You know, that's there's a lot of things that come out of that.
And this in homes you wouldn't dream of, you know, where everything looks perfect, where everything, you know, everybody's dressed perfect. Everybody's, you know, they get that smile on Sunday mornings and all that kind of, some of those are the fake ones, are the ones that I can catch up. I can it's the right thing. I promise you I can't.
Yep.
But I mean, children are children, they're to be loved. I'm going to say something. This is in the event of Roe versus Wade. So I'm going to say something that's going to shock you. This will be a total shock. there is a hero in that I think of a woman as a hero who knows she's not going to be able to raise a child the right way. Maybe it's because of the way she was abused. She decided not to get the abortion, but she decided to put the baby up for adoption. That woman's a hero in my mind.
Yeah, I agree.
And she's giving someone a life. She's giving somebody who can't have kids the opportunity to raise a superhuman.
Yeah, when we're going to.
Some people say, well, that woman is just not a good woman. Well, things happen in your life, Right. And maybe she was abused as a child and she's afraid she'll do that, So you're a hero to me.
I think, I know we can't get into a Roe versus Wade discussion.
We don't have time.
But we don't have time. But but I do think
Otherwise,
I do think that there are choices that are made that are very important. And I think if you're so pro-life, you need to be able to support a child that's being abandoned when they're born. If a child is born and they don't have a parent that wants to care for them, are you willing to put the money down on the table to take care of that child for 18 years? So, there's all kinds of things to work out in your head and in society about how we look at children. Again, from the very beginning of this program, I said, we are not property. We are human beings as children, babies. And, if you get past the cute stage of the 2 toddler, 3 mean kid or whatever, you get into the 4, 5, 6, up to 18. There's a long time there that you have to put up with a child that you don't like. And that's when they get abused.
People do the same thing with dogs. They'll see, somebody on television has a cute dog, puppy, whatever, and they want to get one. Then it grows up and they don't want it anymore, and they ditch it out.
Yeah.
So, okay, we have a minute left in this segment. How can folks find your materials?
My website is DeJoly.com. Oops, this way, DeJoly.com. And that's one of my books. I do a lot of coaching, and I do I do other writing. It's on my website. I also do some art. So DeJoly.com is where you can find me, or you can find me on Facebook, or you can find me at lifeasonesie@gmail.com.
Nice. Great material there. Now you'll also go speak at groups.
Yeah, I have spoken at groups many times. For 16 years, I did that, and I still do it. So
absolutely. Well, DeJoly, thank you so much for being on the show. I love this woman. She's just like super awesome. But thank you, and thank you for all the help that you've done for a lot of folks, including me. I definitely appreciate that.
Face your fear, shout my name, proclaim the